This is Park the Bus with Stephen Caldwell, Kevin Kilbane and Luke Wildman.
Welcome along to Park the Bus. Ian Graham Liggett's here tonight. I'm all alone tonight, but downtown, down at BMO Field, I've got, as ever, Stephen Caldwell. Stevie, how are you doing, mate? You good?
Doing well, Kev. A little bit cold, ready to go home, but excited to be in this
Yeah, it's been a long day. Alongside Matthew Scianitti and Kristian Jack. Thanks, lads, for joining us this evening. Nobody else in studio here, so I'll be keeping you company for the next while. Post, obviously, Canada, Tunisia tonight as well. We'll go there later. We'll talk around a lot around the game and what we saw tonight and does it change anything in the next few months ahead. The big story of the day, though, the big story of the day now is Canada's opener for the World Cup. We know full well that Canada will be playing Bosnia and Herzegovina. No Italy, guys, no Italy. That's the big story, that Italy are now missing the third World Cup in a row. Incredible to think, Stevie, really, that you've said all along that Bosnia were the biggest threat from this draw, Stevie, or from this playoff match. And it turned out that way in the end, didn't it? Obviously, with a red card, it didn't help Italy. Did you watch the game? How did you feel when you were watching it, Stevie? How do you feel about Bosnia in that first match now?
Well, we did watch it, Kev. KJ and I went over to Liberty Village, and between the Haiti-Iceland game and obviously Canada's match against Tunisia, and we liked what we saw from Italy in the first few minutes. They were a better team. They were taking the game to Bosnia. They got their goal. It was a terrific goal, a poor giveaway from Bosnia in possession at the back, and Moise Kean took it so well. And I always felt the first goal was going to be vitally important, and that was going to be the key to that game. But it turned out not to be the key. The key turned out to be the Bastoni red card, and then the aftermath of that, Kev, where Italy decided to go 5, which I agreed with at the time. They decided to go 5-3-1 and bunker in and try and hold out and see the game out. And the problem with that is, once you concede, and they did concede, then you have to change. You have to adjust something. They conceded too much space either side of the midfielders, and it just meant wave after wave after wave of attack. So many crosses coming in, Matthew, from Bosnia. And in the end, overall, when you look at it, Bosnia actually deserves to win.
I look at this Bosnian team, and especially after the goal that they conceded, that goalkeeper, Veselinovic, he gives the ball away, and yet it doesn't go ahead and affect anything that Bosnia does. They kept Route 1 right at Italy, especially after Bastoni got that red card. And to see that level of composure and work rate and fight, I think that they absolutely deserve to win that game. And KJ and I spoke about this, Kev, for SportsCenter. Now there's going to be entire generations of Italians who have never seen the Italian national team play in a World Cup. The 4-time World Cup champions, the Euro 2021 winners. And it's a complete indictment on the Italian national program. I mean, at this point, that rank, what are they, 13th in the world? They're not worthy of that ranking at all, KJ. I mean, you cannot go ahead and be inside the top 15 and not qualify for a 48-team World Cup. It's just out of the question. And I don't know how Gennaro Gattuso stays in that job.
Yeah, I feel for a lot of the fans. You know, obviously it just means so much. It's a brilliant country who just love their football. Do you know what I mean? But there is no divine right to get into a World Cup based on that. It's a difficult path. Norway with the better side over 8 games, which forced them once to get into a playoff route, and they failed for the 3rd time during that route. And look, I still will go down to the fact that I don't think Gattuso got it right, and I know that ultimately I think he did mess it. Maybe got the shape right, but the whole attitude in that second half, I thought they played with fear. They almost respected the opponent too much. Just if you got a second goal, you kill the game.
And Moise Kean almost got that second goal.
He had a chance, when he got the breakaway. So. Look, it's a crushing loss, but maybe we'll get into this next. But from a Canadian point of view,
do you know what I'll say to you though, guys? Honestly, I've been enough of those playoffs. I've been part of playoffs, and when you go in front in those playoffs, you do get an edginess to your game. Genuinely, you do. And you've played enough big games yourself, Stevie. When you're defending something, what's it easy to do? It's easy to drop and defend that lead you've got and try and see it through. And that's where I felt maybe with Italy, they were cautious, but that's Italy, essentially. Italy have been cautious. They've played a cautious way for a long time. One thing I wanted to ask you, Stevie, though, there'll be a lot of Canadians happy that it's Bosnia. There'll also be a lot of Canadians unhappy that it's not Italy, simply for the fact is that there's not this big showcase of a game in Toronto for that opener. Where do you stand on it, Stevie? How is that balanced out in your own head?
Well, I would say that it's a game that Canada can win, Bosnia. Not to say that they're favourites. I still think Bosnia are an excellent side, and they'll cause Canada a lot of problems, but it is a more winnable game because they have less star power, and they're a team that Canada, once they do their homework and they look at where they can be hurt, I definitely think they're a team that are vulnerable in areas, Bosnia. But when they're allowed the space like they were allowed by Italy, and KG alluded to it in the tactics in terms of sitting off them and not having periods of possession and allowing Bosnia to do the one thing that they're probably elite at, which is cross the ball into the box, where they've got willing strikers in Dzeko and Demirovic who will attack the ball and will come, wingers that will come in from the far side. And I just felt like Italy played it that way. So Canada have to attack Bosnia with a different kind of mentality. They got to try and keep the ball from Bosnia, keep possession, and be brave in possession, Canada. And I do think it's a game that is more winnable than Italy might have been. But it's not the glamour game that maybe we wanted as a network in terms of Canada v Italy. Everyone would have been talking about it because of the strong Italian population that we have here in Toronto particularly. But also the fact that it would have been such an exciting game to play against a sort of traditionally world-class team, KG. I don't know if they're world-class these days, but Italy is still a nation, having won the World Cup 4 times, that we all look upon as being one of the elite teams in the FIFA World Cup when they're there.
Yeah, I think what I'd like everybody to ask themselves watching the show is, what as a football country do we want?
Yeah.
What do we want? Do we want glamour games and big teams and have a great time and have like twice the amount of people watch the match and have people talk to us about football that they've never known and grow the game? Or is it time to say, hang on a minute, we want this team to do well and do better? When in DC, when Gretzky drew that ball, I couldn't sleep that night because I always thought, and now I can say it, I didn't think Canada had much of a chance against Italy.
Right.
And I know people say, well, Italy haven't qualified for a World Cup. I thought it was a disaster of a draw because Italy defend really, really well and Canada struggle as it is to break down teams. And Italy would not have been worried about playing here. There's a lot of players who play Champions League finals for Inter, and they're not going to be worried about playing in a big game. They're not going to be intimidated playing in a big game. And I just felt that there was a real chance that Canada would be getting on that flight to Vancouver after match day 1 with no points. And based on that's game 7 in the history of the World Cup of not getting nothing. The pressure's piling on, and that Qatar match becomes ginormous. And now I don't think it becomes as big because regardless of the opponent, I think Bosnia, of course, are winnable. But even if you just get a point, it's a positive swing in momentum that you can't lose that first game.
No.
And Matthew, I just felt that was a real tough pill to swallow when they got Italy, and I think now that I just think it's a massive avoidance. And for anybody who's really concentrating on what's best for this team, yes, there's a lot more pressure on Jesse Marsch and the players to perform, but they have to be privately ecstatic at this.
Well, as the one Italian Canadian standing here, I will tell you, I don't have a rooting interest with the Italian national team anymore. I might have when I was in my 20s and been sentimental then. I think you saw a potential PR issue coming out of what Jesse Marsch said about burning Italian jerseys. And even though it was a joke and he said he was being facetious, and we know Marsch and kind of how he can use a bit of theatrics and energy to kind of engage the media, I saw the comments and it, in my mind, said, well, if Italy qualifies, and knowing the Italian-Canadian community as I do, they would have been out here in droves, and they would have made themselves known. Irrespective of the fact that Italian Canadians are proud Canadians, full stop, period. I know that Jesse Marsch and Stevie, you've called for it, and KJ, we've talked about this, that it is time for, if that had been the case, Italian Canadians to embrace the fact that they have a competitive team in the Canadian men's national team, but they would not have. They would have been here celebrating a team that, for many, including my family, was a way that they felt a connection back to Italy and how Italian Canadians spoke to each other. So that would have been the sentimental part of it. But I think just given the reaction that Jesse Marsch got, Kev, from what he said about Italian jerseys and wanting to do a red out and all that stuff, I think it probably would have escalated a little bit more because I can tell you guys, Italians never forget those kind of things. And they would have made themselves heard on June 12th.
But Canada gets their day now. And they don't have to share it.
100%.
And they deserve it.
Yeah. And what do you think, Kev? What do you think of the game?
Well, do you know what I thought overall? I thought it was I think every one of the playoff games have been very competitive, apart from Denmark beating North Macedonia that we saw the other day. They've all been very tight. 3 or 4 of them have gone to extra time. A few of them have gone to penalty shootout. So they've been very nervous, and that's in keeping with historically how playoff games have gone. I said I played in enough of them myself and been part of enough myself that you mentioned there, Stevie, earlier on, right at the top of what you were saying, I felt as though the first goal would have been key. And usually that is the case, because if you get that first goal, it gives you a platform to build off. But that game went on that red card. As soon as Bastoni was sent off, it was always going to be difficult for Italy. I just felt Italy, maybe across the game, even when they went in front, were too cautious. They didn't really... You never felt they were going to go on and get that second goal, even prior to the red card. So that's something that Gattuso will probably look back on with regret, I feel. I think he will really look at that to think, we had enough quality, we've got enough within our 11 that started this game to go and win this game comfortably. But it just didn't turn out that way. And all this that went into the game around the Italian players celebrating getting Bosnia, that played into Bosnia's hands, didn't it? The stadium,
Yes,
how cold
absolutely.
it was there, and all these sort of things did play into Bosnia's hands. One thing I wanted to just go at you, Stevie, on there, just on what KJ's saying, what looked like a disaster of a draw has turned out now to be very winnable games, and where we're going to see Canada. Double edge to this one, Stevie. How do Canada remain in a position where they don't become complacent? And what do you expect Canada to get after the Switzerland game? And where do you expect them to be?
Well, it would be absolutely unprofessional and naive for Canada to be complacent. They cannot underestimate Bosnia. You can't underestimate any European team because of the competitiveness of the region and how difficult it is. And KJ said it and said it well. There should be more places for European teams. That is a fact. But FIFA are trying to play, the political game and give everybody, sort of fair space or places. And it's probably not right if we're trying to get a more competitive World Cup. So that being said, with Bosnia qualifying, they're a quality side. There's no given right for Canada to come out here on June 12th and beat Bosnia. They're going to have to be excellent to do so, Kev. But what I'll say is, it's now a group, and I never felt this when Italy were in it. I felt third place would have been a great achievement, but it is now actually a group that they can go on and win.
Yes.
I'm not saying they're going to.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but
there.
Do you think they'll beat
there's a
Switzerland in
chance
that
that
last
you win that
game.
game.
That last game against
Well, what
Switzerland.
I'm saying is
They might not need to.
you might not need to, depending
Yeah.
on goals, depending on the way other things go. If you beat Bosnia and you set yourself up for a critical match against Qatar, which is always going to be, and it needs to be 3 points, you go into that Swiss game with 6 points, Kev, and you've got a chance of winning the group and staying in Vancouver. And
Switzerland sorry to interrupt, but Switzerland don't have to care about staying in Vancouver.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've already played out on the West Coast. Switzerland have never won a knockout game for all their history. They've never won a knockout game in a World Cup. And I think they'll beat Bosnia, and I think they'll beat Qatar.
Right.
So they got 6 points playing Canada, and you're in.
And less
by the
bothered
way,
about
less bothered.
winning the group,
So then
yeah.
you can. By the way, you're probably going. If we finish second, you'll play someone from Group A, and by all accounts, that looks a really weak group.
Do you know what, though, lads?
Yeah,
Look,
so
and
anyone
again,
second in Group
I'm not
A.
going to I've said it earlier on about pouring cold water on this as well. Canada again tonight, and look, it's probably the perfect segue for us to go there. Another game, Canada haven't created an awful lot of clear chances from open play. This has got to be a problem, hasn't it? That we've said this now going back to Gold Cup times and things like this. The last year, we've seen Canada not doing enough from open play. A lot of the goals are coming from set pieces, penalty kicks, as we saw at the weekend. So, in essence, we're looking at the game to think, we feel as though Canada are better than Bosnia and Qatar. They've got better players, more high-profile players, but these goals are not coming. Even when they're playing Guatemala and El Salvador, they're struggling to break down sides that sit in a low block.
Yeah, I agree, Kev. I would say tonight they got in some great positions. So I would kind of argue and say they did break down Tunisia, who are a good defensive side, and got into advantageous areas behind the defence in wider areas. I'm thinking Liam Miller's chance in the first half, where they have to be clinical. Like, the quality has to be better. They have to capitalise on the opportunities at the highest level. And unfortunately, KJ, they're just not quite doing that, are they? They're getting into spots and getting in wide areas.
Though, guys?
Well, not necessarily, but I think the wrong players are in the wrong positions, kind of thing. I think, like, again, David's been inconsistent tonight. He's been running around, he's had the effort, determination, he's worked his socks off, but he's not gotten the ball enough, KJ, and he's not got in the key areas as one of Canada's most talented players.
As players, Stevie and Kev, do you think it helps the fact that you're probably going to play back-to-back opponents now with similar profiles to do so?
Yeah, yeah, potentially. That's for sure. It's teams that I think you know what's coming, but I mean, it's not like they didn't know what was coming for some of these friendlies, you know.
For sure. I just mean, sorry to interrupt, the contrast of an Italy to a Qatar is remarkable. Very different to a packed house here against Bosnia. They're going to sit in a little bit, put the pressure on Canada to go at them, and then we know that Canada should have a lot more of the ball against Qatar. To Kev's point, how are you going to break them down? Because if we're sitting after match day -2 at the World Cup and they've had back-to-back 0-0 draws, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
A disaster.
Yeah. For sure.
So they've got to break them down.
That's the thing, though. They still have to figure out how are they going to break them down. Where are they going to get their success from? There's no consistency to Canada's attack, Matthew. Like, they get into good areas, and you know, is it a cut back? Is it a ball across the front? Is the ball even coming in? Sometimes they turn back, they recycle it round. I think there needs to be more consistency to Jesse Marsh's Canada, Kev. I think they need to be a team that we kind of know what's coming, because when I think about tonight's game, and obviously just called it and it's kind of fresh and new, but when you watch it back, I'll guarantee that they got into some really great areas and then didn't capitalise and didn't find the bit of quality that they needed at the right time. And that to me is an issue, and that to me is something that Jesse Marsh needs to work on with his players and the few days that he's going to have before June 12th.
You know what I find interesting, and given how well Marcelo Flores played tonight, and thinking back to the last time they were here and the offense was explosive, Ukraine.
Yeah.
Who was explosive in that game?
Yeah, Buchanan.
Tajon Buchanan.
Yeah.
And so when you think of Marcelo Flores on the left and Tajon Buchanan on the right, I see opportunities there to be incisive, to go in and to really go and to put balls in the box and to cause problems 1v1 against opposition defenders. But it always seems to me, especially with Buchanan, and you've talked about the inconsistency, Steve, that he could be a bit of a vibe player. Those first few touches, you're going to know whether or not Tajon Buchanan's locked in. I liked what Marcelo Flores did tonight, and you see more of that. The more he gets acclimated, the more dangerous he could become.
He was very good.
But the fact is this: they need to be able to break teams down. That second half, they penned Tunisia in, but really, Tunisia looked pretty unbothered because there was no one really in front of net. You know, Daniel Jebison had an opportunity. Richie Larea had an opportunity, but Ismail Kone had an opportunity, but all in traffic. Yeah. And if you can't go ahead and get that final ball in, it doesn't matter how much possession you have on the box.
I was going to say, KJ, though, at the highest level, Oliver Shea's got to score.
Yeah.
And Miller's got to score.
And Tenny had that opportunity.
If that's a top team, their goals.
They score.
Yeah.
Again, I'll say, I think they are who we think they are.
Yeah.
At this point, to Kev's point, are they going to be any different? Like, look, the personnel helps. Eustáquio is an enormous difference maker. Alphonso Davies, let's be honest,
we haven't seen Alphonso Davies in this team for a while.
We still have not got to a point where a fullback is overlapping wingers and crossing balls into the box consistently and making good crosses into the box for one-touch finishes. Yeah. We're not seeing that at all right now, so that helps too. But I did the numbers, and I think it's 27 goals from open play now for Canada in 29 games.
Right.
And 24 of the 27 have come 15 seconds or less after they won the ball back.
Right.
So they're not, the moment they get the ball, they're not creating enough moves to break down these teams. Yeah. They're coming from moments where someone makes a mistake and then quick pass would score. Yeah. And that's how it.
But how did Italy score against Bosnia tonight?
Yeah, a lot of goals do come like that.
At some point, there has to be a point where you've got to create and open up these teams. And that's what, I mean, Jesse Marsh gave an interview afterwards, and he's like, I can't, there's such an honest team. I love coaching this team. But it is now his job, his number one priority, to figure out how can I get that attack to break down these teams.
But this is what I talk about simplifying it. Sorry, Kev. This is what I mean by the consistency and the simplification of when they get into good areas. Yeah. Understanding the ball is coming in. There's a couple of times Tanny Oliver Shea pulled to the edge of the 18-yard box or sat out. No, it should be, we need you in between the posts, 6 yards out, 7 yards out, to tap it in the back of the net. But he's got to know that the wide guy, whether it's Larea or Davies or Segur or Johnson or Buchanan, we could go through them all, Liam Miller, it's coming in. So be in there and be where it matters. So I really think they need to find a consistency to their attacks and you know, a sort of style that is simple and basic and clear, like what is coming here. And if they do that, then I think they can find more goals from open play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other stat as well, you mentioned the 27 in 29 games from open play, 27 goals, 2 from the last 7, KJ, from open play. That's maybe something, the closer we're getting to the tournament, we're not seeing a lot of open play efforts, really. I mean, maybe not efforts is harsh, but clear-cut efforts. There's been a lot of great openings, great positions, as you touched on, Stevie, but that's where we are. The other thing, KJ, you spoke to Jesse just after the game there, and when he was speaking, he spoke about the vulnerability defensively when they are in good attacking areas. We saw that vulnerability tonight a good few times. We saw it on Saturday against Iceland. Look, and obviously we keep on saying where is Moise Bombito in his recuperation and how it's going to be. I'm sorry, lads, Kamal Miller and Joel Waterman on Saturday didn't look great as a combination. I thought Ralph Priso had a good 25 minutes actually when he played, but alongside Waterman, who was making mistakes, when Miller came on, the two of them made a couple of mistakes together in that amazing clearance from Liam Miller. Where do we assess this back line? Are we overly dependent on Moise Bombito, or is it going to have to be all or nothing with Moise Bombito there?
I think he has to play. He's
got to play.
He has to play.
Totally.
That's
vital.
It's vital.
Yeah.
For me, if Moise Bombito isn't there, the expectations of everything we've just talked about are lowered.
Totally agree.
Totally lowered. No, ultimately, that's
100%.
There is not another player like that again in this team. I do like Alfie Jones. I think I like Alfie Jones more than most people. I don't think they quite understand, this country understands what a gem he could be for this team, and I think he could be a good partner, again, for Moise Bombito. There's a lot of players that could be playing significant minutes at that back, but if he's not playing there, they're a completely different side to them.
I would say that if Canada go into these World Cup games and they're choosing between Waterman and Kamal Miller and even Ralph Priso, Kev, he had a decent 25 minutes for me, but decision making at this level is you know, is elite. You got to be elite, and if you're stepping, you need to know you can get there. A couple of times Ralph did it. More glaringly, Waterman did it. Miller got caught in the ball a few times. If Canada are going into these games with these centre backs, Matthew, we're in a bit of bother.
Has to be Moise Bombito, because if you look at
what about Luke Defugero then, guys, as well?
And even Cornelius. Defugero, well, Bombito's number one.
Yes.
And Cornelius needs to be fit. I don't know how he's going to get fit. He's not going to get competitive games with Rangers, but he's got to work his socks off to be as fit as he can be, because they need Cornelius. And then third for me, clearly, is Defugero. So, you know, you've got your doubts, fitness-wise, let's call it, for your top 3 centre-backs, and 2 of the 3, and I would say Bombito, absolutely, and 1 of the 2 are needed if Canada are going to be successful in the summer.
The one thing Jesse Marsh said this week to KJ and I is that Canada's men's medical staff and Nice are going to put a plan together for Moise Bombito. We watched him in training. The running did not look good. He was doing still a lot of stability work on that broken left leg, and I don't know how close can they get him to 100%.
What can you do if your leg's not healed properly, you know?
And this is a leg that had a stress fracture, remember,
That's
right?
It,
so you don't want to re-injure, because what have we seen from Canadians who've come back after their injuries? They've gotten re-injured a few games in, and you know, you hope, and Jesse Marsh said that they are sure that he's going to get some playing time with Nice, and Nice isn't fighting for anything at this point of the season in Ligue 1, but they need him game fit, at least. They have to.
The only thing I would say, again, to summarise the big story of the day, is that maybe you could get away with playing him in games 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Things like that,
maybe.
If you win that first game. Do you know what I mean? Things that there's up. Because I'm not saying I would want the same centre-backs playing out there tonight against Qatar, but there's an opportunity for others that you go, OK, if we've got the first game, I don't know, it's just a manageable situation that maybe you might be able to do. I'm just throwing that out there, based on the opponents being different.
I've always been told sometimes you play, or you have your best moments when you don't play. And I think when we look at this window, Bombito for sure is a must for Canada. Alfie Jones, as you mentioned, KJ.
Yep.
De Fugero was here, but he wasn't fit.
Wasn't fit.
His ankle was off. And Cornelius was here, but he wasn't fit. I know he played minutes. And they 4 guys are far and away the top 4 centre-backs that Canada have, Kev. So, no disrespect to the others, but it's glaring now that they need to be more solid at the back, because, as Jesse Marr says, as you throw players forward and you play against better opposition, you're totally punished if you're, sort of hesitant at the back from the counter-attack. And Canada have been very hesitant in 2 games in this window.
Yeah, I felt that. Obviously, there's so many different areas that we can go to here, but I think probably the most pressing one was the form that Cyle Larin's been in going into Saturday's game. Tani El-Washey, lack of game time that he's getting at Villarreal. Did we get a clearer picture tonight as to where that race is going to go for the partner for Jonathan David?
I thought tonight was a game for a player that we never saw.
Yeah.
I thought that tonight was a game for Cyle Larin.
Yeah, you might be right, because they were sitting deep in that first half, weren't they?
Crosses into the box, good movement, and one-touch finishes. It's clear and apparent that there's been agreements made with the championship teams on minutes of these championship players. Liam Miller got 1 start, Ali Ahmed got 1 start, Cyle Larin got a start. So I think that's important. I'm not quite sure whether he could have come on. He was here. They gave other players opportunities. I think Tani would be disappointed by the fact that, by the way, Jesse Marsh is usually takes quite a long time to make substitutions. He removed him quite quickly as well. So I don't think he did much. You could just see he's just not in form.
He still gets opportunities, though. That's what I'll say. He is. Larin never had a sniff, Kev, on Saturday. And I know it was a different game, but Oluwaseyi still gets his big chance.
The ball finds Tani.
It's sort of unfortunate that he seems to, be a little rash when he's in that position, because he finds the ball at his feet. He gets chances. He had the one where he had the turn and the swivel, which again, could he have been more precise with the finish, but it was lovely play to get himself in the position, and at least he hit the target. I would say this has been a good window for Jebbison, because Jebbison was effective when he came on, and we're starting to see things in his game where he's maturing a little bit, and he's someone that from this window has stood out for me in the forward line that might actually contribute significant minutes, Kev, when the World Cup comes.
I like that. And he played the position he likes, the 9. He got to play in the 9 rather than like at the World Cup on the wing. Sorry, Kev, go ahead, mate.
No, do you know, Stevie, you've consistently said once we know Canada's opponent, that might change my mind. Does it, now it's Bosnia, who are you going to lean to, or who would you prefer to go with as that 9?
What a question, because I thought it was going to be Italy. I was ready for the answer if it was Italy. Do you know what? I really don't know. I think size will be important. Not to say Tani Oluwaseyi is a small guy, but I think Larin's presence in both boxes might be vital. So I would probably be leaning towards Larin. But as I said, I've really been impressed with Jebbison tonight. He held the ball up well too. He's got the pace. He's kind of got a mixture of Larin and Oluwaseyi, because he can run in behind. He's got the pace to hurt defences in that way, and he's got the stature where he should be able to hold the ball up like Larin and be that physical presence. But he has to go back to his club, and he has to be flying coming into summer to maybe somehow come into consideration to start. It might be a tall task, but I think Jebbison is in the discussion now, just to complicate it even further,
but
where
Stevie, you've only
he might somehow get that start.
Yeah, you've only just put Larin into your lineup. You just don't want to take him back out again. That's what you're worried about, aren't you? That I'm going to come for you again on another change.
I can't possibly flip-flop again, can I?
I know we've only got a couple of minutes left. I just wanted to address, and it's to your point, Kev. Are we at the point now where we no longer have to see anything from Uzbekistan and Republic of Ireland? Those games? Or do we still have to see something in 2 games with really poor, let's be honest, not great opposition? But what do we have to see in those games to make sure that we know the battle? Because is it not down to more the fact that Tani's not going to get a lot of minutes at Villarreal, and Cyle Larin could go score another handful of goals and get them into the championship playoffs?
But I think we'll really be swayed by somebody potentially scoring 2 or 3 goals in one of the games. If you can imagine how hard goals have been to come by. If in open play Larin gets a double against Uzbekistan, to me, he immediately goes to the top of the pecking order.
Yeah.
Or you know, Oliver Shea gets a hat-trick against Ireland or whatever. I do think that they still have a place to play, just because there's such parity between 2 or 3 guys, and really nobody's like jumping out. So if somebody has a performance that makes them jump out, Matthew, they go to the top of the list.
Probably the same from the goalies.
Yeah. It is. It's the same chat between the strikers and the goalies.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about those.
Yeah.
I do want to go ahead and talk about one more performance tonight that needs to get better. The Canadian fans. I'm sorry, the Tunisian fans, they brought it tonight, and I was over there by where the Voyageurs were, and I love the Canadian fans. I love the Voyageurs, and they had an incredible reaction to Liam Miller's latch-stitch tackle. They need to be a lot better come the World Cup. Like, I don't know if there has to be some coming together with all the Canadian fans. The next time a game is played here, and if anyone is missing it, it will be a home World Cup for Canada, and that's a tremendous opportunity for the game in this country. The fans have to be better. I don't apologize for saying that, because if you don't bring the energy, and this has nothing to do with, you know, partisan with the team itself and it's supporting your team. It's just, this is a home World Cup, and what I saw tonight, I was not impressed by the Canadian fans at all.
Let's hope the Canadian fans can afford the tickets.
Yeah, let's hope it's real fun.
That's another fair point.
It's probably not going to be, is it?
Lad, the one thing's for sure, it's going to be a sea of red when it's Bosnia in that first game, that opener in Toronto. I just wanted to give a quick mention to Democratic Republic of Congo, qualifying for the first World Cup in 52 years tonight. Jamaica, very poor over the 2 games, I felt, but anyway, another CONCACAF team, or one CONCACAF team dropped out, so the Congo are in the World Cup. Looking forward to it. Lads, thank you so much for joining me. Staying up late tonight as well. It's a late one for us. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching Park the Bus. We'll be back next time.
Thanks for watching Park the Bus. You can catch new episodes every Tuesday, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.